So first up is the 7900 XTX, and y'all already know it's in the S tier. And one of the major reasons for that is because it's only $930 on sale, and sometimes it even goes less, and that is pretty crazy. Because it has 24 gigabytes of VRAM, which is really important, and I'll get to the reason why later, but in addition to VRAM, it has really good benchmarks. It's one of the most powerful cards on this list. Now, on my last tier list, I think I had it like C tier or D tier or something, but what changed is that now, like, they fix all the problems relating to VR and especially AV1 encoding. And I've been doing my research and like compiling people's opinions of how they feel about this card after all the fixes, and mostly everyone is saying that it's good to go for VR. Like in 2024, this is the card for high-end VR. And to be honest, to give my opinion, I think it's gonna be the go-to for VR for like forever, because Nvidia, they don't really care about the home like graphics card market anymore. They're making graphics card for car companies and AI companies and stuff. And I think now Nvidia makes more money than like the entire country of Canada. So yeah, they don't need to compete in the home graphics card market anymore. So yeah, us VR gamers might never need to buy Nvidia ever again. And now to talk about VRAM again, if you want 24 gigabytes of VRAM from an Nvidia card, you're probably going to be spending like $2,000 on a 4090. And yeah, technically you can get 24 gigabytes of VRAM on a used 3090 or 3090 Ti, but those cards are really old, so they're probably not going to have any warranty. And maybe you can't even find them on the used market because they're kind of old and like no one has the money to upgrade to the 4090. So if you're looking for a new card with 24 gigabytes of VRAM, the 7900 XTX is your only choice. Because the 4090 literally costs over double the price for the same amount of VRAM. Not more, but the same. And if you don't know what VRAM is or why it's important, it's basically in VRChat, it's where all the characters' faces and skin and hair and clothing textures, and also the surface of the entire world, they're all stored inside your graphics card's VRAM. So you can imagine in VRChat, it's very common to have like 10 or 20 or like 40 characters on screen. So you want as much VRAM as possible. It's much more important for VR than for other games, which might care more about like, you know, raw power and stuff. So basically in the year 2024, AMD has basically fixed all their problems with VR, and it's like the perfect storm for the 7900 XTX. Because Nvidia is not even trying to compete. In my opinion, I don't think there's any other choice for a high-end VR gaming machine. You have to get the 7900 XTX. So next up is the 7900 XT. I'm kind of divided of where to put it in A or B, but I'm gonna tentatively put it in A. Tentatively. So you can buy it online right now for around $700. And compared to its main rival, which is Nvidia's 4070 Ti Super, it's a couple percent weaker, but it's also a couple percent cheaper. So it's like, you know, comparable value for normal games. But in regards to VR, I think it has like a unique strength because for $700, you're getting 20 gigabytes of VRAM, and that is a premium amount of VRAM. Because the way Nvidia works, like their most powerful card, the 4090, it has 24. But the next step down, it has only 16. So I don't want to spoil the rest of the video, but Nvidia is selling $1,000 cards with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And AMD is selling this $700 7900 XT and it has 20 gigabytes of VRAM. So what, you're paying $300 less and you're getting more? Like, yeah. AMD is really giving us the best value possible for VR. Now, as for the rest of the specs of the 700 XT compared to the XTX, it's basically just a cut down version. So like, it's still really good, but just not as good as the more expensive model. Now, what made me want to put it in the B tier is like, I don't really understand the value proposition. Like, who wants to buy a $700 graphics card? Because for me, I always buy the most expensive graphics card. Because the way I see it is that if I get the best one, I can use it for a longer amount of time. And then over the years, I can like average the cost and like that makes it cheaper per year. So that's why I don't mind spending like, you know, $1,000 for a graphics card. But I think for like most other users, they're fine with like a mid-range graphics card. So like 500, 550, like that's perfectly fine for VR gaming. And then for like the really poor people, the people who are like begging and receiving like handouts from church, they are getting a $330 graphics card. So the way I think of it, the tiers are like 300, 500, and then 1,000. So who's buying a $700 graphics card, right? Who's like, $500 is way too weak for me, but $900? Oh, no way. I want $700. Anyway, it's kind of a nitpicky problem, but yeah, just me personally, the price is a little confusing. But anyway, this card launched at $900, and just a couple months ago, it was like $750 or $800, and now you can get it for $700 or less. So if you're one of those people who wants to spend only up to $700 on a graphics card, then let me know in the comments because I don't know if any of you actually exist. But me personally, I would go one step up to the 7900 XTX for only $200 more. Okay, so next up is a weird one. I want to talk about the 7800 XT and the 6800 XT together because these things are kind of weird and they're related. Like, it's hard to even rank them because they're so confusing. So basically, even though they're from different generations, they beat each other in different games. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, shouldn't 7800 XT be strictly superior to 6800 XT? So the reason why this isn't true is because the 7800 XT is a powered up 6800. It's not a powered up 6800 XT. So the reason why they can beat each other and lose to each other is that the 7800 XT is a powered up 6800. It's not a powered up 6800 XT. You understand? It's not a direct evolution. It's a direct evolution of like the non-XT version. Like comparing the 6800 XT to the 7800 XT, the 6800 XT has more compute units, a bigger L3 cache, and it uses more TDP. So since it's using more electricity, it can do better in games and have more performance. And that makes me like kind of mad because like they shouldn't name it that way, right? The naming is literally lying, right? Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They are literally scamming you by calling it 7800 XT. It should have just been called 7800. But at the end of the day, for $500 or less, they have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is pretty insane compared to what Nvidia is offering. So I can put them in the A tier actually. It's very surprising, but I can actually put them in the A tier based on the price to VRAM ratio. And another reason that I have them in the A tier is that the 6800 XT was one of the best cards of the last generation. And if you can get them for like $400 used, it's a no-brainer. Like it has so much VRAM and power. So if that price is available in your country, then you're really lucky. If not, I suppose you can get the 7800 XT for $500. That's not a bad deal. But actually a new card just came out. And that new card actually puts these two guys in the B tier. Yep, I was tricking you guys. How do you feel about that? So recently AMD released something called the 1700 GRE, which stands for Gay Rabbit Edition, and it's actually in the A tier, and I'm even gonna put it at the top of the A tier. That's how insane it is. So compared to the 7800 XT, it costs $550, so it costs $50 more, which honestly is not a lot of money. And for just $50 more, you're getting a card on the Navi 31 platform. And Navi 31 is also used for 7900 XT and 7900 XTX. If you go to the next step down, which is the 7800 XT, that's on Navi 32. So for $50, you get to go to the better platform. And as for the VRAM, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, so not as much as the 700 XT or the 700 XTX. It's the same as the 7800 XT and the 6800 XT, but the important part is that most of the time, you're getting 10% or more increase over the 700 XT, and you're paying only 10% more. So again, you're paying 10% more, but you're getting at least 10% more increase. So it's really a no-brainer. Like if $50 makes or breaks your gaming PC budget, you need to just like work at McDonald's for 3 more hours. Because in America, McDonald's minimum wage is $20 an hour. And compared to Nvidia's 4070 Super, which costs $600, it usually performs better in games without ray tracing. So again, you're paying less than Nvidia and you're getting more performance. Like if you just look at the data, the 7800 Gay Rabbit Edition, it's just a really good card, and it's so good that it cannibalizes the 7800 XT. These they have no reason to exist anymore. They should just go into like a landfill or something. So if I were AMD, I would like put a huge like sale on the 7800 XT because yeah, the GRE, also known as the Gay Rabbit Edition, is just way too good. Okay, so next up for the low budget people is the 7700 XT. So this one, if you're on a low budget, yeah, this is going in the D tier. First of all, it's $400 and you're getting 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so that's already kind of a killer. My friend is still using a 3080 Ti. I think it has like 11 or 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and he is suffering in VRChat. Well, at least in big instances. I think that if you want to play demanding games, and VRChat in VR mode is a demanding game, I don't think you can live with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Like, it's not worth it to cheap out on $100 if the difference is like 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Like $100 is definitely worth that. So yeah, I don't recommend anyone to buy the 7700 XT. It's a piece of trash. And I would definitely use it to bludgeon a thief if he tried to like rob me. I would just start beating him. I would just start beating him. Okay, next up is the 7600 XT. So this one was a shocker. I'm not gonna rate it yet. I don't want to spoil because this one's a shocker. I'm not gonna rate it. I'm gonna put it in the middle for now. First of all, it's around $330 on sale, and it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It is a low-end card and one of the lowest-end cards on this list, but it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So that is crazy. Let me be clear. This is a trap and a marketing scheme. And this is basically fraud. Like, yes, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but in 99% of the games, the raw power is so weak that the 16 gigabytes of VRAM doesn't matter. Do you understand? Like, you're gonna get bottlenecked on raw power before you ever fill the 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So, you know, it's kind of like tricking people. But that is only in 99% of games. I think that in VRChat, I really do believe this. I think that in VRChat, it's in the 1% of games where this will actually benefit. So it's like a hack. Now, let me be clear. Raw power still matters for VRChat, 100%. I know I've been glazing VRAM for most of the video, but raw power is definitely a thing and it matters a lot in VRChat. But VRAM matters a lot too, and I think that because it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM for $330 or less, I think it's going to punch way above its price class. Again, I'm not saying it's going to shit on a $400 card. I'm not saying it's going to shit on a $500 card. I'm just saying, for $330 or less, you're getting 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and you're going to be really happy if you buy this, if you're on a budget. So personally, I am putting this in the A tier, and it's pretty much a no-brainer if for some reason you're on a low budget and you want to play VR. And, you know, I won't make fun of you. Like, you know, not everyone has a lot of money to spend on gaming PC. So I think it's like totally cool to buy this 7600 XT. Oh, and by the way, there's links to buy these graphics cards from Amazon in the description and the comments. And if you do end up buying them, make a couple percentage points of commission. And I don't know, thanks a lot. So next up is the 4090. Oh god, this piece of shit. All right, so no spoilers yet. We'll put it here for now. No spoilers yet. When I started research for this video, it was like 1850. And now it's like nearing 2000 or crossing 2000. So like, what's going on? So one of the reasons for this is that the US, they actually banned the export of 4090s to China. So what Chinese people are doing is that they're buying them from places like Korea and Thailand, and then they're smuggling them into China. So normal people who want a 4090, like we can't compete with the people in China who are like paying the scalpers fees, right? Because when they buy them, they can probably sell them for double in China or whatever. So yeah, already this is like horrible news for anyone who wants a 4090. Like this is such a bad deal that I want to put it in the D tier, but it does have two very unique strengths that force me to put it in the B tier. So here's the strengths. Okay, so for me personally, I'm a high resolution headset user. So that means people who use things like Bigscreen Beyond or Pimax. So when you first plug in the Bigscreen Beyond, like the default setting for the resolution, it's like 5000 by 5000 per eye, which is really crazy. And I was lagging a lot. So I reduced it to 3560 times 3560 per eye at 75 hertz. And even at this reduced resolution, like I still lag sometimes because, well, 3560 by 3560 is huge. And again, I have a 3090 and a 5800 X3D, which is, so I have one of the strongest combinations for VR possible in the world. So for people out there who think like there's no use case for the 4090, well, literally me talking right now, I have a use case for the 4090 because I can't reach 75 hertz all the time while playing VRChat normally. So if you're like me and you use a Bigscreen Beyond daily, there's definitely a good reason to buy the 4090. And for people who aren't high resolution headset users, they can also use the 4090 if they're doing hobbyist work or like professional work, because even though AMD has closed the gap in terms of VR, AMD is still lagging really, really far behind in terms of Blender and AI. Because the truth is, AMD is complete dog shit in Blender. Like according to this chart, the best AMD card, the 7900 XTX, it actually loses to the 3070, which is one of the weakest NVIDIA cards of the last generation. And it only has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So I don't know, like how is this even possible? How is AMD so bad at Blender? Like the world can only know. And as for stable diffusion and other AI applications, NVIDIA is still far ahead. So the decision to buy a 4090, it doesn't matter so much about the price. It matters more about like, do you need the best performance on the market? If yes, then, you know, go ahead and pay $2,000. But if you don't need it, the card is dog shit. So that's why I kind of, I compromised and put it in the middle in the B tier. So next up is the 4080 Super. Hey, come on, let me drag you. Next up is the 4080 Super. So where are we going to put this? The 4080 Super costs $1,000 and it has 5% more compute units than the 4080 regular version. But strangely, the performance is like literally the same. So like, what the hell is that? The L2 cache is the same. The memory is still the same. You're getting 16 gigabytes and the base clock is the same. It seems like the only benefit compared to the 4080 regular is that on launch, this is $1,000. And the 4080 on launch was $1,200. So yeah. So if you don't need NVIDIA only features and you don't need productivity support for things such as Blender, then the 7900 XTX is strictly better for cheaper. You're getting everything better for cheaper. I don't recommend anyone ever to get this card, but the reason that I don't put it in the D tier is that some people, and actually my friend he loves to play VRChat and he loves to play games like, Cyberpunk and stuff. So if that sounds like you want to play VR games, but you also want to play some flat screen games that use ray tracing, then you really want to get the 4080 Super, because AMD cards are not very good at ray tracing. And also my friend who likes to play Cyberpunk, he also makes money by making things in Blender, so that's another reason why he would get an NVIDIA card, because AMD cannot do Blender. So if that sounds like you, then definitely pick up the 4080 Super, and if that doesn't sound like you, then stay far away because the value is trash. So next up is the 4070 Ti Super, which has the worst name, 4070 Ti Super. This is kind of a weird card, let's talk about it. So it's $800, it has 10% more compute units compared to the 4070 Ti. And that's a lot, 10%. And the reason why it has a whopping 10% more is because it's using the same silicon as the 4080, not the 4070 Ti. So it's the evolved version of the 4080, not the 4070 Ti. And that makes the name even more confusing, right? Like, the evolved version of the 4080 is the 4070 Ti Super. Huh? Anyway, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is pretty good for NVIDIA, but it's really bad compared to AMD, because as we know, AMD is offering 16 gigabytes of VRAM on the 7800 XT, and also the 7600 XT. So we're definitely not impressed by getting 16 gigabytes of VRAM on an $800 card. And all in all, this is just an inferior version of the 4080 Super. Like if you need NVIDIA only features, if you need to use Blender, but you can't afford the 4080 Super, okay, then definitely pick up the 4070 Ti Super. But for all other people, you really want to stay far away. This is not worth buying at all. Okay, next up is the 4070 Super. I bet you guys can figure out the pattern by now. You guys probably know where this one's going. So the 4070 Super is about $600, and it actually beats out the 3090 in a lot of cases, which is pretty impressive. It's significantly stronger than the 4070, and it even has a 33% larger L2 cache. And even on the GPU side of things, VRChat does like a big cache. Now what really sucks is the 12 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, it's $600 and you're only getting 12 gigabytes of memory. That really sucks. And yeah, at the end of the day, the 7800 Gay Rabbit Edition, it does everything the 4070 Super does, and it does it cheaper, and you even get more VRAM, 7900 GRE having 16 gigabytes, and the 4070 Super having 12 gigabytes. So like, yeah, no one should ever buy this card unless you only have $600 and you need to use Blender and you need to play ray tracing games. Yeah, I don't think anyone should get this. But you know, some people do need that. So next up is the 4060 Ti. The 4060 Ti, it sucks, and it's not good, and it's bad, and I don't like it because it's dumb. D tier. Next up is a 1080 Ti. So usually I wouldn't cover this because it's so goddamn old, but someone actually asked me about this in the comments, and I actually own this card and use it every day in VR, so I just want to talk about it really, really quickly. So you can actually get these on Amazon right now for like $300 something refurbished, and it's the EVGA models, so it's actually the good model. Some people say it's the best model, but I don't really ever recommend buying this for VR, because first of all, like I said, 11 gigabytes of VRAM is just not enough. It's just not enough for like a typical user of VR, you understand? You know, like if you're just like, you know, messing around in VR, it's enough. But, you know, if you want to be in a big instance, you want to see a lot of people, like, you know 15, 20 people, 11 gigabytes is not enough. And furthermore, like, VR performance is not just about hardware. It's really not. It matters a lot on software as well, because, like, the picture you're seeing in your VR headset, it's actually a stream. It's a stream coming from your graphics card. So you're basically watching a YouTube video streamed from your graphics card. And like YouTube video, it's getting compressed. Do you understand? You're not getting a raw feed, you're getting compressed feed. And with the new graphics cards, they have something called AV1 encoding, which is like a really, really good way to compress the image and get you the best picture with like the best speed. And the old cards, they don't have AV1 encoding, and that makes them worse for VR. That actually makes them, you know, much worse for VR, to be honest. So if you're one of the people who want to get into VR and you have the opportunity to get like a cheap 1000 series card, like, you know, just don't do it. Try to get like a newer card, you know? Definitely try to get the newest generation card, because those are going to have support for the newest codecs and give you the best performance in VR, which again is streamed to your headset and likes to use modern encoding. So 1080 Ti, I'm putting it in the D tier, unfortunately. And if you want to go cheap, definitely, again, 7600 XT, if you have to go cheap. Okay, Intel Arc. So this company called Intel, they made an investment into a, not a country, it's a place that begins with the letter I. And the I place, they call it the largest investment ever into the I place. In all of history, this is the largest investment ever into I place. And, you know, personally, the I place, they're oppressing a lot of people, so I don't want to support Intel, who made the largest investment ever into the I place. I cannot support that, so I'm gonna put that in D tier. Sorry. Not sorry. You're not even a real graphics card company anyway. And now what you've all been waiting for, it's the 5090. Where's the 5090 gonna go? All right, I'm too excited. I can't give you guys a cliffhanger. It's going S tier. It's fucking S tier. I know some of you guys might be thinking, Sid, the 5090 isn't announced yet. You can't just put it in S tier. You're trolling me. Maybe I'm trolling. But you know, recently Nvidia partners like MSI and stuff, they have stated that they anticipate the launch of the 5090 in the fourth quarter of 2024. And right now, in recording this video, gosh. We're rapidly, you know, before we know it, it's going to be the fourth quarter of 2024. So definitely get ready for the 5090 launch. And I estimate that it's going to cost around $3,000. Like, it's not worth $3,000, but I imagine they have a lot of 4090s remaining, and they want to clear the 4090 stock before selling the 5090 for like the fair price, the so-called fair price. But even if it was $3,000, I think I would still jump on it to get it at launch. Because you know it's gonna get scalped. You might as well get it for $3,000. And $3,000 is not a big deal for me because I have 3 rental properties. You understand? So my first rental property, it pays for my mortgage, and then my second rental property, it pays for my groceries, and then my third rental property, that's the one that pays for my hobbies, like, you know, VR gaming, whatever sort of gaming I like to do. So that's why for me personally, remember, this is a personal tier list. For me personally, the 5090 is in the S tier, because I'm rich and I can afford it. But yeah, if you're poor or if you're like standard, I definitely would put this in the B tier, because the strengths and weaknesses of 5090, it's basically the same as the 4090, right? Like if you have a high definition headset, like us Bigscreen Beyond users, we're gonna appreciate being able to actually hold like a constant 75 FPS. We're gonna be very thankful to do that. And definitely as like years down the line, as time goes on, we're gonna be running more generative AI on our computers. We're gonna be doing like running the language models on our computers. Like the 5090 has some unique strengths that are so unique that I can't put it in the shit tier, but it's too expensive to put in S tier. So, B tier it is for now. And if you don't agree with this chart, if you think I'm the dumbest person on earth, then let me know in the comments. And if you want to learn about the best CPUs or the best gaming laptops for VR, then check out these videos. See you next week.